Recently, there's been a lot of people joining the grand old hobby of collectively gathering around a table and hallucinating, otherwise called Dungeons and Dragons. This may lead people down the path of discovering some of the old games, namely a classic called Baldur's Gate. A fine game that came out in 1998, just like some of the viewers of this video. There's just one small problem with Baldur's Gate. It was created with the old 2nd edition AD&D rules. Rules that required a degree in theoretical physics and a love of rolling a new character because you decided to take 2 stairs at a time and it killed you. Lucky for us, the game does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to the rules and the math, but that doesn't make it any less complicated in its own right. There's a lot you can miss or possibly not even be able to comprehend. Hopefully with this guide you'll be able to get started and catch almost everything that this game has to offer. For the purposes of this guide, we'll be making someone who's good and be doing a lot of the good stuff. You can play this game totally evil and be murder hobos, or take options that make you a dubious individual to be around. As fun as that is, though, being good gives you access to a solid number of quests and outcomes. If you want to play this game on your own after you follow along with this guide, I suggest doing an evil playthrough with a new class. With that out of the way, we can start with character creation. You begin by choosing if you're male or female. This choice has very little impact on your stats, just like real life, where we're all pretty equally screwed. In the end, this only really limits who you can date and what portraits you get, so it's kind of a non-issue, as you can give yourself whatever kind of voice and portrait that you want. After you choose this and pick the best portrait in the known universe, you select your race. Race matters in AD&D, as some have distinct advantages and disadvantages. Humans can dual class, allowing you to leave one class for another, more attractive class. Say you are a fighter, but magic is tempting you and you've got great SAT scores. You can dual class into a magic class, and when you catch up to your old level, you get all the benefits of your old class along with your new one. Elves make for a great dexterity-based class, and they can easily get a 19 off the bat from character creation, which makes getting a low AC a cinch. If that sounds weird, it's because for whatever reason, a lower armor class means you're less likely to be hit. How does that work? It works because of a concept called THAC0, which stands for 2-Hit Armor Class 0. I'd love to explain this to you, but when it was explained to me when I was 10, my eyes glazed over and I felt my brain try to ignite itself like it was protesting Vietnam. I was then given a chart by my dungeon master and just told to use it while he told me if things hit or not. I still have no simple way of explaining it outside of the fact that it is a number that you're trying to roll above in order to hit something minus its armor class. It's easier to see done than to be explained, and I have no idea why I'm trying to explain it. Look, just low number good, big number bad. Let's just go with that when it comes to your AC and your THAC0. Half-elves can multi-class into just about everything and have no real disadvantage outside of being mistaken for a woman in every tavern they frequent. Dwarves make good hitty boys and fantastic clerics and even have their own special brand of fighter. Halflings can be a lot of fun to play and have some advantages when it comes to stealth. Gnomes get to be illusionists, a special version of mage. And half-orcs make things dead more efficiently. For this playthrough though, we're going to be kinda boring and pick either a human or elf. This is going to be dependent on the class that we choose. When it comes down to class, you have a multitude of choices as well as sub-choices. If you picked human, then we're going to go with a fighter, specifically a berserker, which gives you the ability to resist a lot of the nastiness out there, like fear and charm effects. The downside is we get winded afterwards and we can't use bows and arrows because they confuse us. Also, we can't be lawfully aligned, which is fine. If you went the elf route, I suggest going ranger, specifically archer for your build. This allows you to be lawfully good, which gives you the most reputation points. These points are very important for what's to come later. You'll also be able to destroy things that are really far away from you before they even have a chance to know you're there. Next up, we're going to be rolling some ability scores. You have 6 of them, which you should be familiar with. Strength is how hard you hit with big swords and how much you can carry. Dexterity determines your armor class while unarmored, as well as dexterity weapons. Constitution is how many extra hit points you get at each level. Intelligence is the amount of spells you can learn, as well as a chance to learn them. Wisdom is how pious you are as a cleric, apparently. And charisma is to see if people like you and will give you a discount. At the bottom you can see that we have a total roll, which is how many points total we have available to us. This can help you calculate how well you've rolled and can be a determining factor in how strong your character is going to be when it comes down to their ability scores. I often try to say aim for above an 85 while you're rolling these scores. The highest you can obtain is a 108, which would be 18s in every stat, but that's mathematically impossible. Remember kids, aim low, exceed expectations. If you can manage an 85 or better for either our fighter or our ranger, try to get 18s in strength, dexterity, and constitution. You'll probably notice a little number next to the 18th for strength if you're a martial class. This is exceptional strength, which gives you additional damage to Thaco, but most of all, weight allowance. I'd also advise any leftover points that you have go into charisma. You don't really have to worry too much about your intelligence or wisdom this time around. Once we've got that, we're going to go into proficiencies. This is for your weapons that you're good at. For our fighter, I suggest we go into flails and morning stars as well as 2 weapon fighting. For our ranger, I'd suggest you put 2 into longbow as well as 1 in longsword and 1 in flail. Also, if you're doing ranger, you're going to be asked after this to choose your chosen enemy. Ogre and spiders are both fantastic choices for this list, mostly because ogre hit hard and spiders are pretty plentiful out there. Next, we're going to choose the colors for our character, including our hair, skin, and outfit. After this, you're going to choose the voice that you're going to want to hear for the rest of the playthrough, and now you're naming your hero, the most important choice you'll ever make. Once that's all set up and finished, you're ready to enter into the world of Baldur's Gate. Hi everyone, it's your Uncle Apple from the future. I'm here to record this little bit for you because I forgot to record it before I started editing this video. I'm here to suggest that you play this game on easy. I completely forgot about talking about the difficulty settings in this game whenever I previously recorded this bit. So here I am now to tell you that I suggest you play this game on the easy setting. Normal is totally doable, and this playthrough that I'm doing for the video is on normal. But if this is your first time through, then I'm going to suggest easy mode. This is not to say that I think that you're a terrible gamer or anything like that, but this is more to say that you should enjoy the story that Baldur's Gate has to offer, as well as the setting. Once you've gotten used to how things are going and how things play, then you can always bump up the difficulty to either normal or the core rules. Thanks everyone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. Our story begins in the sleepy fortress of Candlekeep, where your adopted father wants to go on a sudden vacation. He's given you some money and wants you to get some weapons for the road. When we start after the monologue, we're greeted by the new and improved UI that Baldur's Gate now uses. This is brought to you by Siege of Dragonspear, an expansion that came out for this game 20 years later. Starting on the left at the top, we have a button that lets us return to the game when we're in another menu. Next, we have a map which shows us the area around us. We also have a button here that shows us the world map so we can get a great glimpse of the Sword Coast. Next, we have a journal where we keep notes about our journey and what our current objectives are. Below that, an inventory where we keep all of the garbage that we've picked up after we beat things like loot pinatas. This is also where we can equip the various items that we find. After this, we find our character sheet with a bunch of information, as well as a biography that we can type out ourselves if you feel so inclined. This is also where you'll level up your character when you hit your XP threshold for your class. You can also export your character here for use in other games or even multiplayer games if you don't want to re-roll a new character. Next up is the Mage Spell Book, where if you're playing a spellcaster, you can find and prepare your various spells. You also have a Priest Spell Book below that, which is the same concept as the Mage, but with more Jesus. Next is the Options menu, where you can change various things as you so choose. Down here, you've got a Quick Save button. Speaking of the Quick Save button, let me take you aside real quick. Just come here. Just come here. Alright. So, your quick save, in this case, is bound to the Q key. That key, right there. This one. Yeah. I hope you've got that key burned into your mind. If you don't, rebind it to something that you're going to remember. F5, your mom, I don't care. Just bind it to something that you're going to remember. There's a good reason for this. See, Baldur's Gate is a very tough game. It's also a very old game that didn't quite come out in a time where autosaves were a thing. It's going to be very important for you to save often so that way you don't come away frustrated because you screwed up something. Get extraordinarily used to hitting that button at any point. Gonna go into combat? Press Q. Gonna go talk to someone? Press Q. Gonna come out to your parents? Q. Either way, this is gonna save you a lot of headache down the line. Below that is the Help button, which tells you everything that I just did in greater detail, but with half the jokes. The icon below that is the Rest icon, where you can get some shut-eye in the middle of your travels and get your spell slots back, as well as some hit points. If you try to do this in town though, most of the time a guard will come and kick you awake and tell you there's no vagrancy allowed. Below that is a clock that allows you to see what time it is and how late in the day it's getting. Now on to the right panel, you'll see that there are character portraits for your current party. This is how you can select certain characters to do certain things. Below that is a gift from heaven. This button highlights things that you can interact with. Doors, boxes, people, all of it. I highly suggest clicking this and keeping it on for the duration of your playthrough. You can also access this information by simply holding down tab, but I got a condition called being lazy, so I just use the button on the panel. After that is a party AI switch where you can have your party act accordingly to various scripts you can select from the character sheets. You can turn this off if you really want to micromanage your entire team. Again though, because of my aforementioned debilitating lazy condition, I leave the AI on. Below that, you have a button that'll allow you to select all of your party members at once. In the middle is a hotbar where you find your currently selected character's accessible abilities. The little diamond here allows you to see ground loot, which is very handy for quickly looting things all around you. Next, you have a button that you can click if you want to give someone a chin wag. You can also select your weapon if you want to use it on something. You can also select your fists for teaching someone the meaning of respect. This is also how you select things on other characters, like spells and other abilities you might have, as well as a quick item select, which I suggest using for things like potions and wands. Above this bar is your information window, which gives you all sorts of useful things like what your quests are, previous dialogue, combat info, and more. A very handy tool when you want to go back and look at something that previously happened. But that's enough teaching. We're here to play Dungeons & Dragons, which means going into a tavern nearby and getting a quest from an old man. When you enter into the inn here, go and talk to Firebead there, and he'll ask you to get a scroll for him. Now all you gotta do is talk to him about 30 more times.
It's hard to find decent folk nowadays. 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 It's hard to find.
He'll get so annoyed at having to say that line over and over again that he'll give you 300 gold to leave him alone. Now we're going to head into the back room over here and find a locked dresser. You can use your weapon to break open the locks and get the golden spells inside. Hold on to these, they can be valuable for when you find a spellcaster. Next, you can talk to the nobles in the back room here if you want. If you choose option 1 and your charisma is high enough, you can convince them that they're maybe a bit overdressed for a place like Candlekeep, and they'll agree. This is going to lead to some fun later. Now we can head upstairs and commit more acts of larceny for our advantage, and even some assault. Continue breaking locks around here as needed. There's going to be one that you possibly can't break though, unfortunately, but don't worry too much about that one yet. There's one more that we can steal from, but there's the unfortunate fact that this guy is standing here. This isn't an issue though, as you can select your fist and then gently introduce him to the ground, and then take his things. Oddly enough, he doesn't seem too mad that you just gave him a knuckle sandwich. Once you have all of this in your pants, head outside and we can go ahead and start our chores. Head north and speak to Flydia, who decided to leave a book somewhere weird. Next, head east and into this building where you're going to have a violent conversation with this guy. Welcome to AD&D, everyone. When you finally laid him out, loot this room and then leave. You'll be asked what happened to you, which you can answer this however you want. Next to this building, you'll find Dreppen, who tells you that Flydia left her book in a stack of hay for reasons. Talk to him again and he'll tell you that his cow's got an upset tum-tum and he needs an antidote from a guard named Hull. Also, don't forget to get that book out of the hay. Continue heading east and then wrap around to the south and you'll find a guy named Jondalar who's going to teach you about combat and the importance of pausing during fighting, which is a very handy tip. Then his friend is going to come out and shoot you in the butt with an arrow until you smack Jondalar for sexual harassment. He'll congratulate you on standing up for yourself and leave. Now go to the right and speak to the angry dwarf outside the building and get the typical RPG introduction mission of killing small mammals for profit. Once they're dead, we can loot this area and speak to the dwarf outside once again for your reward. Now go south and speak to the guard Hull, who apparently needs your help saving him from himself. See, apparently he left his sword back in the barracks because he didn't think he was going to need it because, I don't know, being a guard or something. Now continue south and get interrupted by the gate warden, who's offering practice with a big group. This is really important if this is your first rodeo in terms of Baldur's Gate. This will teach you how to fight with a big group of other characters. It's a good way of kind of getting used to the slight amount of micromanage you're probably going to need to do in this game. I'd highly recommend it if this is your first time. The building next to this is an infirmary, where you can find a priest of Ogma who can give you a healing potion if you tell him you need healing. You can also perform a light day's theft by breaking the lock on a nearby table and taking another one. Just be sure no one is watching you or the guard is going to get called, and they can be a little rough to fight this early on. Once you've done that, head west and go into the first building above you to get accosted by someone else trying to relieve you of your organs. Teach him the meaning of walking softly and carrying a big stick, and then loot and leave. You'll be asked once again if you're okay by someone else, and you can answer this however you want once again. Next to this building is the barracks, where you can find Hull's sword as well as an antidote for Drepin's cow. You can also talk to Fuller here if he has any tasks for you, in which he'll ask you to buy him some bolts from the inn. Let's finish this first lap by heading back up north to the inn, and then go inside and talk to Winthrop, who's very proud of his inn, as well as elven posteriors.
My hotel's as clean as an elven arse.
Sell the few things you picked up, and then go ahead and buy what you need for the road. If you're playing our fighter and built them the same as I did, then get some splint mail as well as 2 flails. If you're going archer, then go ahead and get a composite longbow, some studded leather armor, and a bunch of arrows. You can hold up to a stack of 80, and if you think you have enough arrows, you don't. Make sure you get more than enough for the road and equip them in the ammo slot that's just above your character's weapons. Also be sure to get a helmet. Helmets in this game are great because they protect you from criticals, which protect you from getting turned into a pile of body parts suddenly. Also, don't forget those bolts for Fuller. Once you're kitted out, head south through the center of the map and find Tethril, who gives you the scroll that Firebead wanted. Continue on southeast, you'll meet Imowen, your friend, who bemoans the fact that you're leaving. When you finish talking to her, head back out and go back to the barracks to give Fuller his bolts, and then go back the opposite way. Going back this way, you'll be able to give Hull his sword, Drepin the antidote, and Fleetia her book. With this circuit complete, head into the inn and give Firebead his scroll, and now it's time to leave Candlekeep forever. Make your way back to the center of the map and onto the steps of this large building, and then speak to Gorion, your adoptive father. He'll tell you it's time to ski-daddle. You can ask him why, but he'll remain pretty cryptic about the reasonings. Instead, tell him you can leave immediately and you'll head out of the protection of Candlekeep and into the wilderness. It's here you're going to be treated to the Dungeons & Dragons tragic backstory treatment of watching your dear old dad die before your eyes. You'll be given a sad monologue about your adoptive father dying to this Teddy Ruxpin villain, and then soon awake in the morning to Imowen sauntering up to you. She'll offer to join you on your quest to go find 2 strangers in a nearby inn. Take her along with you because she's useful for many of her thieving abilities. She also has a few healing potions, as well as a wand of magic missiles which you can take for yourself and use. Next, you're going to want to head north and poke around the site where your pappy ate it, so you can collect some of the items off of his and other corpses here. He's got a belt that is outlined in blue. This is a magic item. Whenever you find an item like this, you're not going to know what they do until you identify them. It's a good idea to always identify something before you wear it, just in case it's cursed. Sooner or later, you're going to have people who can identify things for you on the fly, and you'll be able to go back to places as well and get them identified for a small fee. For now, though, the belt is a bit underwhelming. It's safe to equip if you want, but it honestly isn't that great. You take more fire damage in exchange for taking less cold damage. This is a bit like wearing a winter coat in the jungle. Sure, you're going to be toasty and you'll probably die of heat stroke, but nobody's going to be laughing when the snow eventually arrives. You can also find some leather armor here, which is a good idea to throw it over to Imowen, who decided to come out here with nothing but a smile on her face and a bow in her hand. Now let's talk a little bit about exploration. Obviously, whenever we come to a new map, I'm going to be pointing out the important things to do here. I highly recommend, however, that you explore these maps on your own a little bit. Specifically, that you exit each of the other 3 corners of the maps. That means if you enter from one side, you try to exit the other 3 sides. The reason being is because this helps you discover other places on the overworld map. After you've got Gorion's stuff, you can go to the west a little bit and find someone on the edge who's about to break. Convince them not to give up just yet. They'll step away from that ledge like the friend that they are, and you'll have performed a good deed for the day. Hooray! Now head south and go along the road and you'll eventually run into two gentlemen named Czar and Montaron. These two guys are evil. Now you can opt to take them with you by telling them you got nothing else better to do than head straight for Nashkel Mines where they're headed. Or you can let them join your party, loot them for all they're worth, and then kick them out. I do this typically to get some studded leather armor for Imoen, as well as some spell scrolls from Czar. You can just dump them right here where you found them and carry on without the two of them in tow. Either way we do this, head north just a little bit, where you'll find a diamond inside of a tree. Now it's time for us to exit this map and go east. Exit the map that direction, and on the overworld map you'll find a place that's just below the friendly Arm Inn that we can get to now. Entering this area you'll be bothered by an old man who asks weird questions. Answer him however you want and he'll get the message and walk off. There's a few things you can do here, but they're better with a full party instead, so we're just going to head to these crossroads here and then go straight north to find a ring inside of a rock. This is a ring of protection, which lowers your AC so it's safe to equip for the time being. After that, continue your way north until you find an exit and find yourself greeted by this cutscene of the friendly Arm Inn. Unfortunately, you've also discovered the end of this video. We've only just begun and we've got a lot more in store. Join us next time when we'll be performing deeds for the elderly, recruiting more followers for the cause, and discovering our first major town. Until then, thanks for watching. If you're interested in what I'm doing, join me over at my Twitch at twitch.tv/AppleBandito. Until next time, stay safe everyone and take care of yourselves.